Welcome to soft ground pencil drawing. Starting off by showing you a plate that looks very different than most hard ground plates. The kind of textures and marks we have on there are not typical. You wouldn't be able to get this with a hard ground plate and an etching needle. This is one of the really exciting things that soft ground can do for you. Here is an impression taken from that plate we were just looking at, and you will notice that there are very little in the way of sharp, typically hard ground lines. In fact, most of these lines look a lot like a pencil or a piece of charcoal was used to make them. I know I lied to a lot of you in your intro class when I said it's not possible to make these kind of marks on copper. It is, I just wasn't ready to show you. So we're going to start out here with a little template that I have set up. I've got a picture of a horse, just on a regular piece of paper in that case, and this is tracing paper underneath. And at the very bottom is my soft ground plate. I've used some bits of cardboard to lean the plate against so that it doesn't move. As with any time we're using soft ground, we want to be careful not to touch the plate or not to be too aggressive with it, because soft ground is so sensitive. It takes every little mark. But that is why we can actually make pencil crayon style marks on a piece of copper. So I'm using a pretty sharp, although not super sharp, but a pretty sharp HB pencil. They tend to work best. And I've taped my guide drawing down, which I don't need to have, by the way, but I'm using it in order to ensure that I get, well, in this case, the paw of that horse just right. So I'm drawing right on this paper, and this is just a printout. So this is bond paper. It's nothing particularly thick, and it's not precious, and I'm not using a piece of sketchbook, because if I was, I would be then drawing right onto my original drawing. But I'm going to use this printout as a guide, and using my pencil and trying not to lean my hand on the plate again so that I don't make marks that I'm not expecting. I'm going to do some tracing, but I'm also going to embellish this drawing. You can see that I'm able to press lightly, press dark. I can do shading. I can hatch. I can go back over top of my previous marks. I can make things darker. And what's really exciting here is that essentially the tonality that I impart with my pencil on the paper, whether it's light or dark or heavy or very, very delicate, will translate almost perfectly to a copper plate using soft ground. So I'm going to continue drawing until I feel like I'm satisfied. What you're going to see me do now, though, is to peel back my drawing and my tracing paper and have a better look at the plate itself. And I can see where I've done the drawing. We'll zoom in on that again shortly. But if there's some areas that I want to add, I can continue to do so. Now, I mentioned earlier that I was using this guide sheet. I don't have to. I could actually be drawing basically freehand right onto a piece of tracing paper. Now, this is tracing paper. This is not transfer paper. There's nothing about this other than it is pretty transparent. And I can actually draw on this. I didn't have to use my guide drawing at all if I didn't want to. And it's really up to you. I'm just giving you a couple of different options here. You can also see that I'm going to do a little bit of drawing off to the side here, some shading that didn't exist on the original drawing, just to give you an idea. And when I feel like I'm done, and I could go back and forth, and the reason, of course, why I have this little template set up is that I could put the plate back if I needed to. But when we get up close, you should be able to see in the reflection there my drawing. And it's really exciting because even though it does not look the same as a hard ground line drawing with a needle, it doesn't have that same kind of crispness to it. All of these marks will etch. So speaking of that, we have to be careful of fingerprints. You may want to use that as a creative outlet, putting your fingerprint on there and allowing it to etch. But if you're doing it by accident, you're going to need to stop out. But here's another great thing about soft ground, and I mentioned it in the other video. There's no need to aquatint. Your plate, once etched for 1 hour, is ready to go.